and JICA. And it is a Japanese government program actually, in terms of promoting international joint research aimed at solving global problems or global challenges that's faced. And what is important at this point is it requires the scientific and technology innovation for the SATREP collaboration. Okay, next slide please. They are looking at tackling actually 4 different fields, okay, which is environmental energy, bioresources, disease prevention and mitigation, and infectious disease control. For infectious disease control, it's slightly different from energy, environment, bioresources, as well as disaster prevention mitigation, because this comes under ADMET, which is the Japanese, medical, council, research council board or something like that. So it is monitored and is actually coordinated or handled slightly differently, because it has got to go through not only the JICA but also through the ADMET committee. Can you go to the next slide please? Okay. When we apply for this, I think this is the application bit. They will ask you to actually have a 15 minutes presentation, and then they will have a 10 minutes question and answer session. We have to prepare hard copies, 8 hard copies, because when you do the presentation, there's about 8 or 10 members of panel. They're listening to you, and then they will be questioning question and answer there. Okay, next please. Okay, so this is actually the framework. As we mentioned earlier, it is a joint research looking at global challenges amongst the research institution in developing country and in Japan, and is promoted by MOFA and JICA. So as I said earlier, basically it's coordinated by JICA. So everything has got to go through JICA. But in our case, for the infectious disease, because it is more towards the medical committee, then we also have to actually answer to the ADMET panel, okay, in Japan, that actually looks at the the proposal. So for environmental, energy, bioresources, disease prevention, mitigation, and infectious disease control, the call has been actually put forward now. And for the year 2023, okay, proposal has to be in collaboration with African countries, utilizing resources and energy for carbonization or promoting decarbonization and recycling of waste, recycling in the waste field, and proposal in collaboration with small island developing states tackling the climate change of focusing on disease prevention and mitigation. This is actually very important when you actually look at it, because sometimes when we put in, we think that, okay, this is what we want to do, but they are very specific in what they want to do in terms of SATREP program. So when they say the proposal is in collaboration with the African countries, you really have to get African countries, partners in African countries, into the proposal. Okay, just for example, in our case, it is not ours is a first example for Malaysia actually, not for other country, but for Malaysia, which is not a bipartite, meaning Japan and Malaysia, but ours is a tripartite, which is Japan, Malaysia, and Indonesia. Okay, so we have to actually collaborate with the Indonesian counterpart as well. So, it is a 3-way thing. So for this as well, it looks like they are asking for African countries, if you're actually applying for utilizing resources and energy for decarbonization, or for promoting decarbonization and recycling in waste field. And then if you are looking at, climate change or disaster prevention and mitigation, then you actually need to have a small island developing states. I don't know exactly what that means, but, we have to actually find out what it is. Okay. And because this is a collaboration or a partnership, okay, you need to actually also have a partner in Japan. So it is best if you already have a very good collaboration or collaborative work with a Japanese institution, with a Japanese partner, Japanese researcher, for you to actually, apply this, because you really need your Japanese counterpart later, because they also have to defend at Max or at JICA, the proposal, and for them to be accepted. Because if they don't accept in Japan but they accept in Malaysia, we don't get it. If they accept in Japan and we don't accept in Malaysia, then we don't get it. Okay, so both party has to accept this, and also we have to take into consideration the the African, in this case the African countries that is stipulated in the call. Okay. All right. The project actually look into the project actually is not really a research project per se, because the Japanese do not fund research. Okay, it's the Malaysian counterpart that actually would fund your research activities. Okay, the Japanese actually, this project actually is basically a capacity building type of research, project, where the Japanese will help to build our capacity and also enhance whatever skills that we need for doing such research. So if you are thinking that, okay, I'm going to apply for this and my RA and postdoc is going to be paid for, that doesn't happen. So that happens only in the Malaysian part of the grant, but it doesn't happen from the JICA, from the SATREP grant. Okay, so but for equipment that is actually really important or necessary for you, then you can actually work with your Japanese counterpart and put it into the proposal, of which JICA will actually look into the possibility of funding through the Japanese counterpart. But it's not as straightforward as that, because in our case, for example, they came to audit our lab to find out whether it is really necessary, and why it is necessary, etc., etc. So it's not like okay, we apply for this, we really need it, and then okay, we'll give it to you. Okay, no. So when you do this, you have to, when you apply for this, you really have to think about what exactly you require from this grant. If you think that you need to enhance your capacity and enhance the researcher skills, this is a very good grant, because obviously they are very skilled people in Japan, and they actually help to connect and you to other global institution. But and actually they also provide you attachment. That means you can actually go to Japan and spend time attachment in the research lab, but not to actually hire your RA or postdoc, or do anything beyond that. Even consumables at the moment is being taken care of by the grant from the Ministry of Education. Okay, under special grant of SATREP. Okay, or pairing grant. Okay, can we look at the next slide, please? Okay, so the application for 2024 is now open. Of course, these are just the requirement, my suggestion is, if you are planning to actually apply for this, first off, you must actually get your Japanese partner to agree and actually sit down and discuss on how you're going to do this, because this is going to be a long process. I do not know if in our case it's a long process because of the COVID, because our application was in 2019, late 2018, early 2019, and we got news that we received it in 2020 because of the, I presume because of the COVID thing, and then we couldn't meet with JICA or our Japanese counterpart, until subsequently in 2021, when we received the fund, they were saying that you shall not start this grant until 2020, end of 2021 or something. They give you a date, because of all this. But I'm not sure if that is common, or if that is just because of COVID, because I think this is the first time that we have a SATREP grant, or full SATREP grant, that is actually in UM. There are other SATREP grants where our researchers are partners. Okay, there's SATREP in UPM, and there's SATREP in USM, and UTM, I believe. But our researchers are partner to those research group. This one, we are the coordinating body, we are the main body, and other universities are partner to us in this program. For this particular program, our partner is actually UITM and UPM. Okay, so next slide, please. So these are the project information that is required. Okay, of course you have to name a principal investigator, somebody that is going to be in charge of this program. So this is normal. So the technical cooperation title, which is a project title, so what your project is about, and then the budget. Okay, you need to have a full budget of the whole program. That's why I said you have to really discuss with your Japanese counterpart what you think is a suitable budget for this. We think that when we first started, we think the sky and the moon and everything is there, but it's not true. Okay, because the Japanese also have very limited funding. They also have a ceiling for this, and they will actually really scrutinize whether we really need or not. So you ask for a reasonable amount. After discussion with your Japanese counterpart, they will tell you what they think is suitable and what they think their part would be. But our part would be a request from MOHI. It is not a one-to-one grant. It is not 50% grant, 50-50, or if not that, they give 1 million, we get 500,000. MOHI promised 500,000, but it is you have to actually detail it out. Of course, the part from the Japanese funding is actually usually slightly higher than what MOHI is able to actually give. Due to budget constraint, I believe. But again, you have to remember, the main bulk of, your RAs and your salaries for RA, etc., will have to come from the funding from the MOHI side, not from the Japanese side. Okay. So also need to have an overall goal, a long-term objective. They like to see a good outcome. Okay, an outcome for this. Okay, in our case, for example, when because we were looking at drug development and we're looking at infectious disease, at the end of this, okay, in most cases that we apply for grant, we would think that we'll do exploratory, find some bioactivity some compounds that are bioactive, and that's it. Okay, in their case, that's not the long-term plan. The long-term plan is at the end of this, this drug is already possible for us to go to the next step, which is maybe clinical trial or whatever. Okay, so it's not like, okay, let's explore. Okay, so it's a very long-term project that they hope. And technical cooperation purpose. Okay, then we need to know our. Can you go down or not this slide, because I think there's something below it. But here, no, the one before, slide before. Okay, all right. Oh, never mind. Anyway, so you need to have a Japanese partner, as we mentioned earlier. Okay, the name of the person in charge there, and they usually have a very distinguished and well-known professor being in charge of all the SATREP grant. So if your partner is maybe not a professor yet, you might want to talk to your partner who actually is working with a professor, and maybe that professor is willing to be the project principal investigator for this project. Okay, and they also wanted to know the stakeholders. Okay, who are your stakeholders? Okay, can it be industry? Is it the agency, the ministry? Okay, those stakeholders are also something that is important. They may not be in the, they may not be in the project, but they just wanted to know that because this is a long term. Subsequently, who is going to go and take it up? Ministry of Health, Ministry of Science, or some industry. So this is actually something that you need to actually put in as well. Okay, next please. Okay, so you have a title. So in our case, we have a broad title. Okay, looking for blah 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 in certain diseases, and then you have a sub project. Okay, so you have to indicate the leader in each of the sub project. Okay, so you will be the principal investigator. Then they would be maybe sub project 1. This is a project, and then you have a project leader. Sub project 2. This is project. This is a leader, and the institution is that. For Malaysia's part, at least during my time when we applied, the reason we have the other university is because we are actually asked to, because this is similar to the LRGS, except that we don't have to have too many partners, but you have to have at least 2 other partners from local institution, which is why we have university UPM and UITM. UITM is a very strong collaborator at that point in time, because our work, the Japanese is really wanted us to focus on organic synthesis. So focusing on organic synthesis, the other team that we know that is very strong in organic in small molecule synthesis is in UITM. So and the Japanese actually did approach them too at that point. So you need to actually also know who the Japanese have actually worked with, which will in Malaysia, which makes it a lot easier, because trust issue is actually quite difficult in situations like this. Okay, next please. Okay. So the project background, you need to actually this one it's not like normally. I think unfortunately in Malaysia we tend to actually look at programs, and then we just go in blindly. But you need to actually do a gap analysis and extensive literature review. Okay, in our case, we have a major gap in between a lot of the our proposal and what is there out there in the literature. So we need to actually find that and really have that literature review, because the Japanese panels, okay, when they will ask, I mean, these are the things that they will actually look into. The problem statement, okay, be very concise why this is a problem, and the most important is your objective, your overall objective, because the objective that you have, I mean, the objective that you state there, okay, the methods and your work actually that you are going to carry out must actually address the objective that you actually put there. Sometimes we put an objective that is too broad, but our methods doesn't actually address how we're going to actually achieve the objective that is being put in our proposal. Okay, so that is actually very crucial. It's got, to me, you have to find something that is very short and easy to achieve, so that you can actually meet your objective. Okay, so other relevant information are just basically your if you have other relevant information, meaning you have done this work before, and this is a part that you do which maybe have not published, but you want to expand it, and how you want to expand it. Okay, so that are all in the concept paper. Okay, next please. Okay, so then you have a specific objective. Okay, so because your project just now was very broad, and you have an objective, the specific objective is actually looking at each of the sub project that you are looking at. Okay, so each sub project will have a specific objective to do. Okay, for example, in our case, we are looking for the broad objective is looking for bioactive molecule for infectious disease, particularly in terms of malaria, TB, and dengue. Okay, but in the sub project, one of them is actually to synthesize this compound that has already been identified as a anti-TB by the Japanese group. Okay, our case is because we are actually on phase 2, that when Malaysia came in, because they have already done phase 1. So they have done the phase 1 with the Indonesian in terms of identifying the compounds. So they wanted, phase 2 is where they wanted Malaysia to come in, because there's not a very strong organic synthesis group in Indonesia, and they think that Malaysia will be able to help, because we have organic synthesis group, but we need to build the capacity in that. So that's why we were invited for this SATREP application. So it is very specific for the sub project. Okay, and then you have to put in the methodology and research design. Even after we've already put this in our first meeting, there's a lot of change still, because they're not really sure that this is something that we need to do or we can do, etc., etc. So this is methodology, specific objective actually is very important. And being I think I've read through a lot of proposal, and in Malaysia, a lot of the methodology, we are just very general, and we're not very specific and very detailed, whereas in their case they expect something quite detailed. okay, like other proposal that you apply for, maybe like NIH or Horizon 2020. They expect for you to have quite a detailed methodology. Okay. And you have to have the overall research framework, which include the diagrams. Okay, because we have just now, it's a big project, as I mentioned, because your grant is not a small amount. In our case, ministry's grant is maybe not big. LRGS probably get bigger, but the Japanese part is actually big. So they have a very big program. So they expect to have sub program under this, and but then there must be connectivity between the sub program. We cannot have like, okay, I'm doing this part and I'm going to do this part, but there is no connectivity. There's people are going in different tangent. So but the connectivity must all aim at solving the main objective that you have actually done earlier. So the other things are milestone is just a common one. Track record of research team is also another common one. The collaboration, okay, this is something that when we went to defend, okay, we were luckier because they say they have not seen other SATREP teams, okay, that actually does this, and they actually think that this is a very good thing for us to do. Okay, it's a collaboration and contribution for each partner. So when you actually apply, you can put there what the Japanese is going to do, okay, what the Africans are going to do, and what part are you going to do. Okay, now in your part, because there are other universities, okay, other teams, okay, in our case, we only have two sub team. Okay, one is the organic synthesis, the other one is bioactivity and bioactivity testing. So we don't actually split them into different universities, we split them as programs. So people from UITM actually are also in the synthesis group, people from UPM are also in the bioactivity group, for example. So there is no university that is actually in charge of anything. It's the team that is in charge of anything. The organic synthesis team, sub team, the project leader happened to be from UITM, and the project leader for bioactivity happened to be but there are many people under researchers under that, and we need to actually show how the link between the synthesis and the bioactivity group is. So and then this link, how does it link to the Indonesian counterpart, and how does it link to the Japanese counterpart? So this needs to be done clearly, and if you put that in the document, it's a lot easier for the panels to look at and actually ask question, or actually a certain or to actually determine certain things, whether there is a real collaboration or it's just a a patch type of partnership. Okay, next please. Okay, so they also expect you have to put the expected result, findings and outcome. Okay, in terms of this, how many PhDs that you have, how many patents or copyrights that you think you want to publish, publication in journals, conference paper. These are the normal expected output, and also then what is the expected outcome. Okay, for example, at the end of it is you will have maybe a technology to solve water, dirty water, clean water, or something like that. Okay, so the expected outcome should be there. Okay, because what they want to do is actually now subsequently look at the outcome to bring it to impact. Okay, so we always stop at, okay, we always say that our outcome is publication. That is not an outcome, that is an output. Okay, so they don't want, I mean, not that they don't want that actually has to come. Actually, that is more scrutinized in the Malaysian counterpart rather than the Japanese counterpart. But to them and to me, publication is a given. Okay, when you do your work and you want to disseminate your knowledge, whatever you have found, okay, whatever you find, okay, you actually publish in a paper, or you publish in a conference, or you give talk in conference. But that is not an outcome of your research. The outcome of your research is, whether when you look at the objective that you have and whether the objective has been met. And then if it's been met, then there is an outcome of that. Okay, maybe. Okay, and then you need to move further up. Okay, in terms of impact. Okay, so the outcome of your work can be, you have developed a new technology. Okay, now and if this technology is good enough and it's being used or it's being commercialized, that is already an impact. Okay, so you need to think along that line rather than what is your expected outcome. 3 publication, that's not an outcome. So you have to think a little bit more in doing this SATREP grant. Next, please. Okay, so the overall budget that you have, you asked for, has to include, budget from the Japanese, and then we need also to request, a portion from MOHI, because this portion that we actually request from MOHI is actually for our research, really for the research to be done. Because without this funding from MOHI, you can't do anything. Okay, even if you get overall budget from Japan and none from MOHI, you can't do anything because they don't fund your research. As I mentioned earlier, they don't fund the research. The budget that they have is to fund training, or not, training and capacity building, meaning our students, they don't, in our case, they don't quite like student, they want staff. Okay, because they want a long-term sustainability of the project. For example, when we wanted to actually build a medium throughput screening, okay, we say we'll send a student or postdoc. They don't want that. They don't like that. They want us to send a lab assistant who is in for maybe the next 10 years. Or they want us to send a lecturer, or even you yourself or I myself go there, and be trained, and then I'll be able to actually sustain this, knowledge that I received from them, or the training that I received from them for the next 10 years to be passed on to the next, cohort of group. So not for RA, but the budget they have is actually for training. So, then that will allow us to go there to spend time, okay? And they don't want us to go there for 3 weeks, 4 weeks. They want us to go there for a longer period. Okay, you can actually, for example, in one of our cases, we were able to get a student to do PhD under this program, a student from UITM, under this program to be attached to a university in Japan. Okay, but the student doing PhD is supposed to come back to UITM and actually continue this program. Okay, they don't want a PhD student who goes in and come back and then goes somewhere else. Okay, so we have to ascertain that, the students going there with a PhD, coming back with PhD, is going to come back to UM, or to whatever institution that is partner. Okay, and the reason that the UITM one goes is because also they are part of the program. Okay, and the project that the student is working on is part of the project that is in SATREP. So they really want that continuity, and the student actually is registered at Japan, not at UITM. So that means if you're thinking, okay, this is a student that we are going to do here and then just do attachment for 6 months, that is something that they don't like, because we have gotten rejection for that. We tried to send 2 students, saying that we're going to have them attached there for 6 months. The answer is no. Okay, so but when we say, okay, we're going to send a lab assistant who is going to is a full-time person who is going to actually look into this equipment, and so we need the training, for this student for this person to actually learn about this for 3 months. The answer is yes. So they want something that is more long-term. So your research budget actually comes from MOHI. So it's more like the LRGS, except that LRGS, I think you have to go in every 6 months to defend, to show your progress. For this, it's yearly. So every year, depending on how long the project is, you have to go in and actually, do your project proposal defense, or project progress, defense. Okay, next, please. Okay, I think that is where I'll stop with the slide. But the other thing that also we want to know is that you may want to know is, if you are very successful, okay, if you are very successful, okay, then they will place an officer from JICA in the university to look after your program. At the moment, we have one, which is actually we place her in the chemistry department, but her job is to actually monitor our progress and look after our program. And we were asked to actually appoint a project manager. In our case, we are lucky that Dr. Chu Yanman agreed to be the project manager, and it's a lot of work for her as well, because the Japanese will call her. As a principal investigator, I don't have as much work except to actually look at whether the research is progressing or not. But as a project manager, Dr. Chu has a lot more work to do, because she has to, liaise with JICA, liaise with the Japanese, in terms of all the things that, is required. And they have quite regular meeting, whereas, as a principal investigator, we have a meeting maybe once a year. Actually, in the beginning, we have every 6 months. And then now, because it's our second year, so we have a lesser meeting, but the progress is still something that Dr. Chu will have to collect and send to them. And the officer in Malaysia, Mrs. Maida, Akiko Maida, is here, and she actually regularly comes. But and anything that you request, okay, for example, equipment or anything like that, if it's not in the budget, it should be within the proposal. If it's not in the proposal, it's not going to be very easy for you to ask, later on. But anything that you want, then you have to go through the JICA officer, which is placed here. So in our case, we have to go through Akiko, who will then take it to JICA. Okay, and then they will discuss at JICA with MET, with the AMET in Japan and the counterpart. So recently we asked for an equipment. So what happens is AMET and the PI in Japan actually AMET and JICA wanted it to be audited. So somebody in Japan had actually came over to actually to our lab and audit to see whether we really require that particular instrument that we asked for. Okay, so I think that's how much I can share at the moment, Dr. Umah. So if there's any question, I'll be happy to answer if I can.
Thank you, Prof. Noorsaadah. I think it was a very clear presentation, and I can see there's a lot involved and a lot of commitment required and coordination required as well. So I would like to invite questions from the audience. Perhaps while waiting, I'll ask you one or two questions. When you have this collaboration, I believe in any normal circumstance, you will have to have an MOA drawn out.
Yes.
Did you had to like draw it out before you applied, or is it along the way?
In our case, because you have to, okay, in our case, because we actually already have an agreement with the University of Tokyo, because our partner in Japan is Tokyo. So so that was a lot easier, because this falls under the umbrella of the MOA. But we have to draw an agreement between UITM, because when the funds come in, we have to disburse to them. Oh, how are we going to do it? Okay, the mechanism. Okay, for example, now we were told that we cannot, by KPT, we cannot disburse the fund to the other university. But how are they going to hire their RAs or student? Okay, so now we have to draw an agreement to say that UM will hire but place the student in UITM. So then the student actually register in UITM, and with a co-supervisor from UM, for example. We need to iron that out, because MOHI doesn't allow the fund to be transferred to other university. So the fund has got to be in UM. With Indonesia, I think it was a very general draft, but what we wanted to do is actually just have our students to go to Indonesia and Indonesian students to come here. That is a lot easier, because we already maybe have some overarching legal framework that allows us to do that already. Yeah.
Okay. I think there's a question. can we have partnership between Japan, Malaysia, and Turkey?
That depends on the call. That depends on the call. Okay. The ones that we have in Indonesia was because it was called for Malaysia, Malaysia, Indonesia. It was not called by MOHI, but it was called by SATREP. So there could possibly be, because we don't see that yet, but you might want to check the MAX website, and if there is any with Turkey, then maybe we can try to initiate that with MOHI, because I think MOHI only follows what, even when we wanted to do the tripartite, it was a little bit more difficult because there was no such example. And the call was not really specific at that time, but because of the special case that they had in Japan, because ours, as I mentioned, ours is second phase. They already had a SATREP first phase with Indonesia, so they want to bring in Malaysia. So that is a special case, but I don't see a problem if there is already a call. If you understand, I mean, if you notice just now they say African countries, so that means you must have an African partner.
So there's one more question here. The research proposal, is it only one, or each country has to propose individually?
The overall objective, I mean, the project should be one project, but each country can propose their own. For example, in our case, as I mentioned, we wanted to do infectious disease. Okay, and they have already started their work on with Indonesia on biopanning and bioactivity scanning and extracting on malaria and TB. So when they actually asked us, they wanted us to work on the malaria because they've already have a compound that they know from the extract from Australia, from Indonesia, that this is something that they want and they want to synthesize. However, okay, for Malaysian government, for Malaysia, malaria, although it is re-emerging, it is not really endemic, right? We are more worried about dengue. So when we applied, we applied for dengue because we know that this is a problem for us, but we had to now discuss with the Japanese and the Indonesia whether this is important or not. And Indonesia also think it's very important, so they took it up. So that's why now we have malaria, TB and dengue, but the Indonesian have been working on malaria and TB, so they continued with this. The dengue now is put in, and we kind of lead, although now Indonesia is also have a project like that. Yeah.
So there's a question, is more like seeking assurance. So we need to fill in another research budget for MOHI. So, and the PI in Malaysia should be a professor. So these are the questions.
Okay. Yes, actually, when you fill in, there is I think a form for MOHI. Okay, I think there is a form. I cannot remember. It's been a long time ago, but I think it's more like the LRGS form. We first fill in a concept paper, and then after that, when we got a response saying that please fill in, then we fill in that form. But I'm not sure now what the process is because I know things change. Okay, PI is got somebody, not necessarily a professor, but somebody with a track record. They will check your track record, unfortunately, especially the Japanese. Okay, unless you have a very strong collaboration with the Japanese, and you are a senior lecturer and they trust you. But for the 3 projects that I know in Malaysia, okay, one in UPM, one here in Malaysia, and one in USM, all are led by professors. So you may want to, unless your CV is very, very strong, or else the Japanese actually has a kind of a problem, I think. Yeah.
So in other words, you may be a professor, but if your track record is not good, then you will still not be selected. And you may be just an associate professor or senior lecturer, but your track record is fantastic in terms of publication and other outputs. So then you may stand a better chance.
Yes.
Okay. So I think that
Prof. Umah
clarifies. Yes.
Prof. Umah, we have Prof. Zul Ilham raise his hand.
Yeah, please.
Hi, Prof. Good morning.
Hi.
Morning.
Zul here. Assalamualaikum. Good morning. Thank you, Prof. Noorsaadah, for the tips on SATREPS. I just have one question. I overheard the word invited, Prof. earlier during your presentation. So your group was invited by the Japanese group. So is there any way that it could be initiated from our side, or it must always be initiated from Japan? That
No,
is my question. Thank you.
yes. In our case, we got invited, which is I guess a special case, okay. But in other cases, okay, you can initiate it. But what is most important, Dr. Zul, I know you're a graduate from Japan, is your connection in Japan. So if you can actually work with your sensei there, and actually then it's a stronger proposal that goes in. Okay, we can initiate it here, but you have to have a very strong backing from Japan. That's why I said in our case we are luckier because we're invited, meaning the Japanese really want us. But if let's say I initiate it, I would have to find somebody there who really is very strong to be able to actually support us when they actually defend in Japan. It's not us defending, they defend. So if they are not very convinced, then it's going to be very difficult for them to get funding. Yeah.
Thank you, Prof. Understood. So we must have a collaborator who are also keen and very motivated to apply, right?
Yes, because after once you get it, there's a lot of work. There's a lot of work and headache. Okay, so because JICA will keep track, and then they will ask for in fact, when you first come in, they will ask you to submit all kinds of form. And I was very lucky because Dr. Chu, I have to give a lot of credit to her as a project manager. She was able to handle this. I mean, I was at that time TNC, and in a mess. So without a project manager who actually do this, then it's going to be difficult. And similarly, I think, as a lecturer, that you need to actually put in time. So this is where you need the project manager. And when they send Akiko over, okay, that is a lot more relief for Dr. Chu. So now she has somebody that she can work with and who really actually do a lot of the running, because they want to know, for example, they want to know what is available throughout Malaysia. I cannot imagine Dr. Chu running all over Malaysia, right? But at least Akiko can do that, because that is her job. So, once we get that and we have a project manager, that makes it life a lot easier. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Prof, I've got a question as well. What is there a particular ceiling, budget ceiling? You mentioned it depends on the project, but what about the duration itself? Is there any cap as to the duration?
No, well, yeah, of course there's a cap. Ours actually supposed to be a 5-year project. I think Japan, they do a 5-5, but our budget that is given to us is just enough for 3 years. Although ministry say it's 5 years. So we budgeted for 3 years, and the other 2 years we have no budget. Okay, but we hope that in the other 2 years, we will be able to already sustain some things and actually just proceed as as is.
Okay. So there's a question by Dorida. Yeah. So please, what is your question?
Okay, so Assalamualaikum, Prof. My question is, first things, normally we receive the call for these projects in Malaysia is close to the closing time. So I want to know clearly about the call. Actually, is it mainly from Japan timeline, and then there is an arrangement with ministry first, and then it's open.
It's actually
the flow is.
The call usually comes from the Japanese. The Japanese call usually comes
Every year, right?
Yeah, every year, but I'm not sure exactly when. But they have to wait for the Japanese call. They simply cannot call because it's partnership. So I do not know how late it comes to Malaysia.
Yep.
And then the Malaysian. Yes, I know. Yes, it is a very big, very short duration, and we had to rush as well. So but we were luckier because we already had before we actually applied, we actually had when they actually first came to Malaysia and talked to us, we had already have something in mind. So when the call came in, we were already ready.
So meaning that is our counterparts in Japan is more clear about the call of the project.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's why I suggest, okay, I mean, if you're ready now, by all means go, but you know they're going to fall every year. So at least now you know, and you start your work, your groundwork. So the next call, you'll be able to get it done. But you know, if you already have now your partner, you know, you are now collaborating, working with the Japanese, maybe you can sit down and look at part of your project and which is the one you want to expand, and then you sit with them and it should, you know, write the call, write. So
Okay.
you know, to end.
All right, thank you. And the second question is, you mentioned just now about the student registration. Is it the student must be registered in Japan or can be in Malaysia and then they're attached to Japan as well?
No, that's where our problem came in. We thought that can happen, but no, they have to be a student in Japan, and with a long-term idea of coming back to the university and becoming a staff of the university. We
So
cannot
meaning that
Malaysia. We can have a student registered in Malaysia and then do an attachment maybe 1 year in Japan, but with the idea of the student coming back to work in the university. That is the main thing. We cannot say, okay, I have a student, I'm going to, you know, attach 1 year in Japan, they will be happy, and then suddenly come back the student goes off to Indonesia or Singapore or whatever. They don't want that. They want the capacity to be built within that university, so that it will be a long-term sustainable, activity that's going to, you know, be carried.
Okay, so may I know detail for your projects? Prof already has in the beginning the collaboration between both university for the student program, or how?
No, we don't. That's why I cannot send my student because we didn't have any collaboration. But the student that went from UITM, actually UITM already had a collaboration with the partner of Tokyo University, I think in Nagoya. So the student was sent to do PhD in Nagoya with a partner from Japan SATREP. I mean, from registered in Tokyo and going to be spending time there for 2 years, then come back Malaysia 1 year. But the person is going to be a lecturer in UIT. Okay, thank you. Another student that we wanted to send. First, we thought master student. Okay, we send master student from UPM. They say no. And then after that, we say, okay, what about a PhD student? We're going to send to UPM, from UPM, and then they ask, okay, is this student going to be, you know, long term or, you know, a PhD graduate and leave? And there's no, agreement saying that the student is going to be a UPM or UM or UITM lecturer. No. Foreign student, no.
Oh, meaning that is Japanese student or not local student?
No. Malaysian student.
Malaysian local. Okay,
so it's that can actually, if you want to do attachment, whether you are a lecturer, for example, you want to do attachment, you want to go on sabbatical, right? And then under this, you can go on a sabbatical and do this program, under SATREP, and they will fund you. Okay, but you have to be a local. If you are a foreign, no.
Oh, sabbatical is also be considered. Alright.
Yes, sabbatical is considered, and they're happy to actually fund you. Provided JICA agrees, but that's what they told us. But that we ask because we have one of our researcher is from Thailand, and she's a Thai. Said not Thailand, not Thai, Malaysian. So this is for Malaysia only.
Okay, thank you, bro.
Okay, there's a question regarding capacity building. So I'm not very clear what is meant here. The capacity, literally what it says is the capacity building is related to the project. So do we need to train students? So I think in related to that, I would like to also ask, does that mean that like a student we send, can the student be sent under SLAB or SLI scheme?
Yes.
Would it?
Yeah, we can. When we talk about capacity building, they want you to be within, not exactly on the project, but within that team. Okay, like for example, our project, as I mentioned earlier, there is bioactivity testing, right? And we were thinking of, okay, let's see if we can have a medium throughput, screening setup with robotic arm, blah, 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 right? So, the training would be, setting up on how to set up, medium throughput, for example. Okay, does not necessarily be does not have to be dengue or malaria, but that but but when the student go there, of course, when they do the training, it will be for our project because that's funded. At least they are put, but their training is on something else. So for example, the students that actually go on UiTM is on synthesis. Okay, he is supposed to synthesize part of the work that is from the compound that was extracted from but the training capacity, but to train methods, various reaction and methods for organic synthesis. So those type of training is required. Yeah. Okay.
Are there any more questions? Okay, while waiting, let me just ask one question. What would be your advice? Because I understand that every year the theme might change or the focus might change. And it's like the call for that particular proposal and also the requirement in terms of the type of developing countries or which developing country that you should collaborate with. So when it is so what do you call not so fixed, it's really ever changing. So how would a researcher who actually intends to apply for this SATREPS plan or should do, or what they should do in order to successfully apply one day, even if it's not the now?
Specific area may change, but the theme is basically, as I've seen it, for the past 5 years, has always been the same. So it's like environmental and energy, infectious disease, what's the other one? Climate change, but climate change will fall under environmental. So if you can, skew it towards, those type of calls, then it will be easier. But as I mentioned, if you have already been working in the area with a Japanese counterpart, it is a lot easier because you already have something that in mind, and the gaps that you need to fill for that particular work, right? So that's a lot easier. And the other thing that you also have to know that when we say that the call change, it depends on what the global challenge is. Basically, we know now for sure there is a problem with the planet, right? So planetary health is really big. Okay, sustainability and planetary health, environmental and climate is really big. So anything that is related to this, and if you're a medical person, anything related to disease that results from the climate change, okay, you already know that this is the area that we can actually start working on, right? So I think we can have this, and Prof. Umah, just this is not for SATREP, but just I know that there are some young researchers here. Perhaps when I first started, I have this book called Book of Ideas. Okay, and I will jot down simple stupid things in the book so that I know what kind of ideas that I may have, and then I want to search further for the gaps for the research. So I think maybe you can do that because now you already know what some of the areas there that you might want to look into. So when the call comes, you already have some kind of idea, and it's not that when the call comes suddenly only then you want to start thinking of the idea. Then that's going to be very difficult, and the chances, unless you're exceptional, the chances of you getting the grant, we know, is not going to be very high. Yeah.
That's true. So your advice would be planning and exploring, and then be prepared in advance.
Yeah, you see,
do a necessary networking as well.
Yes, I remember one story that I heard about one lecturer from I think Europe or US, who spent he wanted to spend his sabbatical for a year here in Malaysia, and after about 2 months, he said he had to leave, and they asked why he had to leave. He said because there's a call for proposal, okay, and he needs at least 8 months to actually come up with a very decent proposal to submit. In our case it's like 2 months. So I think it's good to actually have something ready all the time. Maybe it is not in the final form, right? But at least you already know your literature is already up to date. You know where the gap is. So when you want, when the call come in, you only need to fill in certain gaps. Yeah.
Okay, I think, are there any other questions? Someone has asked whether they could email you for further
sure.
information.
Sure. If I can help, I will.
Okay. All right. So if there aren't any further questions, I would like to end this session and thank you, Prof. Noorsaadah, for your very rather enlightening sharing session. And I'm sure the people who have listened to your sharing session would be a bit more enlightened and would be motivated to apply for the grant. And maybe at least, if not this year, maybe in future, they would be well prepared to apply for this.
Thank you, Dr.
Okay,
Umah.
thank you, Prof.
Just now, Dr. Umah.
Sorry, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, Pua, I think I just saw it.
Is there a question? I don't see in my chat box, and I don't see any.
He's from external, and the person. Okay, yeah. But he had his hand up, but I guess he's an external guest. So that's
Okay.
yeah. All right. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Hope it helps.
Thank you. It's our pleasure.
Okay. Bye. How do I get out?